Hi everyone, Chicken here. Welcome to the last chapter. After all the hard work and time we put into rendering our character and background, we need to do some final adjustments to optimize the artwork and bring it to its full potential. Let's get straight into it. Firstly, I will airbrush a light color onto the corner where the light is coming from. We don't need a lot, just having it on a very light opacity will give the feeling of a bright environment, and it mimics the way bright light shows up in a photograph or a camera. And like how we airbrush a light color onto where our light is coming from, I'll also airbrush a dark color onto the opposite corners. This not only emphasizes the light, but also brings our focus more to the character. Next, to emphasize our lighting even more, we can add a layer on Add mode and brush on a light color to the highlights. So because our light source is a yellow colored light, I'm gonna use a light yellow, and I'll airbrush it onto the areas where the light hits our character. And I'll change that layer to a Add layer mode. You can use an airbrush like I did just now, or we can even use a textured brush like my hard render brush, and I'll paint it on really lightly in many layers. This just kind of fits the painterly style a little bit more than the clean look of the airbrush. If it's too streaky, we can always go in with our smudge brush to soften it out. Now, to blend our character into her surroundings, we can add the background color with an overlay layer. To do that, I will duplicate the background layer, drag it above our character, set it to clipping mask, and I will apply a Gaussian blur to it under the adjustments. Now the colors of the background have been applied to our character, and I'll set it to an overlay blending mode and adjust the opacity. Finally, I'll adjust the hue, saturation and brightness just to fit the background colors and lighting a little bit more. And now she looks a lot more blended into the background. This works especially well for portrait art with a blurry background. And with that done, we can move on to our final adjustments. Usually, I will make my work slightly more saturated and adjust the color balance if needed. We can also play with the gamma curves to increase or decrease the contrast. Generally, things that are further away from the camera have a lower contrast, while things closer to the camera have a higher contrast. Now to adjust the color balance. When we are painting, it can be tough to control our color usage, so this is a really good way to manipulate it at the end. We can make our shadows more blue, or even add more of a yellow tint to the highlighted part. And those are our final adjustments done. This is before, and this is after. We can see that our colors become a lot more vibrant, and our character blends into her surroundings a lot more. I also think it just feels a lot more atmospheric. To finish off this class, let's go through a technique to add a glow to our character. I usually reserve this technique for portraits that are drawn very character focused, like this one. And I won't use them so much for illustrations where our character is drawn into an environment or background, as it doesn't look as natural. So I have my portrait up, and I'll first duplicate my character layer. Next, I'll go into the adjustments and apply a Gaussian blur to it. I set it to 12% and you can see the blurred parts peeking out of her. Next, I set the layer to overlay, and I will adjust the hue, saturation and brightness. Usually I'll turn up the brightness and saturation so it has that glow effect. And that's a great way to highlight our character and separate them from the background. For the mission, make some final adjustments to your character art. In this lesson, we went through the adjustments and simple additions we can add to really make our character art stand out more. In the next lesson, we will go through some particle effects.